Today is Monday, December 16th, 2019. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Republicans complained, whined, bitched, and moaned about a rigged process in the House when it came to impeachment. But when you have Senator Mitch McConnell saying, oh, I'm coordinating with the White House, what the hell is that? Yeah, we'll break that thing down. A recent report shows that black mortgage borrowers were charged higher interest rates than white borrowers and were denied mortgages that would have been approved for white applicants. And then you wonder why there's a wealth gap. Africa's economic growth prospects are the top in the world, so why not invest? We'll talk about that. Also, Orlando Jones has been fired from the Starz series American Gods. He says because the showrunner said his character sent the wrong message for Black America. And a school resource officer is fired for slamming an 11-year-old child to the ground. It's time we get these ridiculous nut cops out of the children's schoolhouses. Plus, a public education forum held this weekend in Pittsburgh, aired on MSNBC, with several of the presidential candidates. We'll have our own post-discussion with advocates for charter schools. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Remember all the whining House Republicans did when it came to the impeachment inquiry? They were like, oh, the fix is in. And they just, they stormed the hearing room and they just complained and bitched and moaned, and Matt Gaetz and Collins and all of the whining they did, how unfair this was to Donald Trump. He's going to get impeached in the House, which now means it goes to a trial in the Senate. And here's what Senator Mitch McConnell, Majority Leader, pretty much says how he's going to operate.
This thing will come to the Senate, and it will die quickly, and I will do everything I can to make it die quickly. So I think impeachment is going to end quickly in the Senate. I would prefer it to end as quickly as possible. Use the record that was assembled in the House to pass impeachment articles as your trial record. I don't want to call anybody. I don't need to hear from Hunter Biden. I don't need to hear from Joe Biden. We can deal with that outside of impeachment. I don't want to talk to Pompeo. I don't want to talk to Pence. I want to hear the House make their case based on the record they established in the House, and I want to vote.
A lot of people would like to bring in Adam Schiff, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. I think I'm more inclined to agree with Senator Graham on this. It's tempting, and I do believe that all of those things must be looked into. There are a lot of real questions here, but I don't know if that would be the appropriate forum once you would have the 51 votes at that point to end this, which, again, very weak case. I think it would be smart to do so. Where would your inclination be?
Yeah, again, I'm going to take my cues from the president's lawyers, but yes, if you know you have the votes, you've listened to the arguments on both sides, and believe the case is so slim, so weak, that you have the votes to end it. That might be what the president's lawyers would prefer, and you can certainly make a case for making it shorter rather than longer since it's such a weak case.
This is the oath that every senator will take before they actually start this trial. I solemnly swear or affirm that in all things appertaining to the trial of, in this case, Donald Trump, now pending, I will do impartial justice according to the Constitution and laws, so help me God. Let's talk about it. Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization. Also joining us, Dr. Samantha Ray Dickinson, Diversity, Inclusion Strategist. Dr. Cleo Monago, political analyst, behavioral expert, and also joining us via Skype. Rob Richardson, host, Disruption Now podcast. Eugene, they already pretty much saying, damn this, we going to do whatever Donald Trump wants us to do.
Yeah, the thing is this, right? You know, Trump doesn't understand any kind of strategy, but, you know, Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, who's been through many, many wars time to time over, do. And, you know, they're like, Lindsey's like, listen, we want this to be open and shut because if we bring in witnesses, then they're going to bring in witnesses. And the last thing they want is for John Bolton to get on stand and say this was a drug deal, or for Mick Mulvaney to get on stand and say, yes, there was a quid pro quo, or for Mike Pompeo or Vice President Pence or anybody in the Trump administration to come in and actually, under oath, testify to the actual high crimes of this president. I think, you know, the Democrats, I think Schumer's doing the right thing by, you know, openly negotiating with Mitch right now. But I think, you know, one of the things I think looking forward at impeachment that Democrats probably could do to make this at least somewhat not one-sided partisan is make Justin Amash an impeachment manager. I would love to see that happen.
Rob, bottom line here is Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham have completely sold their souls to Donald Trump.
Yeah, they have, and they've decided that Donald Trump is more important than the Constitution of the United States. They don't care about that oath. They don't care. I think this party can be best described, everybody in it right now, particularly those who are in office, as cowards and traitors. That's all they are right now. They are betraying this nation, and they said it's more important that we make Donald Trump look good than to do our job. Imagine this, Roland. If you're a prosecutor and you say that, and you're prosecuting a very serious case, someone's for murder, fraud, robbery, let's say robbery, okay? And you're going to say, before I do anything on my case, I have to consult with the defense attorney. That's not a case. You're basically saying we're going to throw the trial. And they know that the case is strong. They're saying it's weak, but they don't want to have a trial. Why? Because they know it's going to look bad, and they know people are going to have to tell the truth under oath. They're trying to avoid accountability, and they're trying to avoid doing their job and protecting the United States of America. It's shameful.
This is clear, Cleo. I mean, Republicans don't want any of this, and these two have been the biggest cheerleaders for Donald Trump in the United States Senate, and these are the games that they're playing. And so everything the Republicans said up to this point about how unfair and wrong this is goes out the window.
Well, Roland, there's an election coming up, an important election for the President of the United States at some point. And of course, it's quite predictable that the Republicans will say, let's get this over with. Let's get this optical disaster out the way so we can lay way to make sure that we look better than we could look, as everyone said. If everybody came to trial and and exposed everything, they know that's going to make them look bad. They want to win the next election. So, of course, they are going to talk about moving past this because they hoped it wasn't going to happen in the first place, but they realized because of the Democratic power, it can't go away. But they do have enough power to silence it, and that's what they're going to do. But it's interesting, this brother mentioned that they're being traitors to the country. But the country voted, not the whole country, but enough, voted Trump into office.
Well, actually, a majority voted for Hillary Clinton.
Right.
He won the Electoral College.
Okay, I'm aware of that. But he didn't get there by 2 or 3 votes. He got there by corruption, along with millions of votes. So my point is that there's people who don't look at Donald Trump as a traitor, but as somebody who's sustaining white control and sustaining white power in this country, and they're down for that. Anybody who's against that is the traitor from their perspective. And I think it's important to look at all these perspectives because we cannot deconstruct insanity if we don't look at the strategies behind what we consider insanity. These people, and also I will close with this.
1 second, Rob, hold on.
I'll close with this thought. From my perspective, Trump and company are acting like white men have acted in this country from day one. So the traitor perspective is based on, in my opinion, a romantic version of how the United States was founded.
Samantha Ray?
Yeah.
Rob, 1 second, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would have to agree with Cleo, sorry. I think that white supremacy is rooted in power. And as he just stated, avoiding accountability and trying to silence everyone else will perpetuate that and will allow for white supremacy to continue, and then for the Republicans to continue to win the next race, and so on and so forth. And so I'm in agreement in what he just said.
Rob, when you look at what's going on here in terms of in terms of how the GOP is operating, again, they know they have a useful idiot in Donald Trump. Yeah. He is serving a very useful purpose. They're getting the judges that they want.
That's right.
And so they know he's an idiot. They know he is corrupt, but he gives them pretty much all they want. That's what's really driving. That's why they do not want him to be touched, because they need to use him for their own purpose.
That's right.
I completely agree with that, and I actually agree a lot of with what the other panelists say. Let me just have a little bit of a different take on some of it, because I think there's something that Democrats can do more. I think the flaw of the Democratic Party and how they go about this, and many other things, frankly, is that they think it's just enough to have the high moral ground, like the fact that you're doing something that's right, and that's the only thing you need to do, and you just present the facts to the American people, and that's all that's going to matter.
That's right.
That's unfortunately, you need to do more. You need to understand. You have to frame the narrative. That's why I said it's important to make sure that people understand he's a traitor, and they make it really clear about what he did. So this is beyond. I agree about white supremacy, how things were there too, and the founding of the nation. However, this is different. We have not had a president just openly go to another nation, say, I need you to do this for me, and if you don't, I'm not going to give you this money, and just totally ignore Congress. At least not since the last 100 years. We had Andrew Jackson maybe when he ignored the order from the Supreme Court. But besides for that, over like 150 years ago, we haven't seen someone who just said, I'm going to just make up the rules as I go and completely ignore the rule of law and just, we don't even care about the Constitution as the President of the United States. I'm going to throw it out. We haven't seen that in modern times, and it's being stress tested. And I think people have to understand what they're giving up, because you know what? They may like the judges that they're getting right now, Roland, but look, if they make this a precedent for us to go through, then you know, it was Joe Biden he was going after right now, but then maybe he could use the power of the office of taxes, maybe of the IRS, to go after you just because he doesn't like you. Basically, you're saying that's okay if you let this go. And no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, that is going to affect you if you give a one man unlimited power, which is what we're saying we're doing if we allow this to go without any accountability. I think Democrats have to lay this out clearly. We're basically saying our Constitution doesn't matter anymore, and we're going to give one man this much power. Our founders were not perfect in a lot, but they made it clear that they didn't want kings.
I think that the reason behind your perspective makes sense. And you mentioned that Donald Trump has set precedents, if you will, that have not been done before. But Donald Trump, part of why he was put into place was because there was somebody who was a black man that was also a new president that preceded him. And he had to make up for that, or white people who were concerned about the myth of their superiority being clearly a joke when it came to the intelligence of Obama being in place. They had to make up for that. So we're talking about two presidents, and I'm talking about precedent as opposed to president, in a row. And there's a lot of people in this country, even on the Democratic Party side, who are white, who agree with Trump's position because his goal is to keep white control intact. And I don't think people care about decency and the issues that you're raising over that agenda.
Well, no, Republicans threw out decency the second they nominated Donald Trump. They said, okay, you know, this becomes about winning, becomes about power. You know, I got my start with a guy named Dan Bongino. He said this one thing all the time. He said, politics is a contact sport. You know, at the end of the day, this comes down to literally fighting for power. It's war by civil means. And the thing is that, Democrats, if they play this smart, they have to play it with brute force. They have to play to win. You're not playing, and it's not about moral victories here. It's about actual victories here. Right. That's not to say Republicans, are flawless in what they do or are able to out-strategize Democrats. No, Mitch plays to win. Lindsey plays to win. John Boehner, when his speaker, played to win. Paul Ryan played to win. Mike Pence plays to win. And yes, Trump is a useful idiot to a lot of these people. You're getting all the judges they wanted. They're getting all the nominees they wanted. You're seeing things that have never happened before in the Department of Interior. I mean, it's, and so that's what they have to lose. And so that's why Lindsey wants an open and shut case. Otherwise, but Trump, the other part is that Trump wants a very, very open case. Trump wants a full show trial because that's the person that he is.
Right. I mean, he wants this to be reality TV.
He does.
That's what he wants.
But it riles up his base.
Of course it does. Yep. And again, but what you're dealing with is the Republican Party not caring about the Constitution. All the law and order people, you love hearing them talk. Well, guess what? You know what the truth is when you see how they're acting right now. I've got to go to a break when we come back. Racism in banking. Such a shock. Really? You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. If you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. As the marijuana momentum continues, our friends at marijuanastock.org have already reached more than half of their funding goal for the hemp CBD investment. That's right. If you want to take advantage of this great opportunity, you should do it now because it won't last much longer. If you don't know, I'm talking about the hemp plant, the good cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Also, hemp farming is now legal in the U.S., creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. It's an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where the folks at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is very simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed high-paying tenants. That's right. They are hemp CBD landlords. Now, you can get in on the action by simply joining their crowdfunding campaign and investing as little as $200 up to $10,000. Again, $200 up to $10,000. Now, you must do so before the fund is closed. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. A recent study reveals some huge disparities in how banks deal with black customers. For example, this year, researchers for the National Bureau of Economic Research found that black mortgage borrowers were charged higher interest rates than white borrowers and were denied mortgages that would have been approved for white applicants. Also, a recent story out of Arizona shows how black folks are treated when it comes to at banks as well, where you had a brother who was a former NFL player who wanted to invest money in private banking with J.P. Morgan Chase, and pretty much they were like, nah, we're good. A black banker there, of course, accused the bank of racism as well. Now, J.P. Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon, is apologizing, saying they must do better when it comes to black customers. Really? Joining us right now is America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens. Deborah, when you hear this story, again, we talk about right now the home ownership of African Americans at its lowest total since 1968. We lost 53% of black wealth due to the home foreclosure crisis because of crap like this.
Well, yeah, you know, every day a black person reaches out to a financial services institute, and because they perceive they don't have enough, and that perception is real, as we saw in the case of the NFL player. Now, he had $800,000 of assets already invested with the company. It's as you get to a certain asset level, you should have access to those perks in private banking, which in some cases can give you access to initial public offerings if the company is in the underwriting syndicate.
Right.
You get to hobnob with portfolio managers, get different access to different insights. And what's really interesting about this particular incident is we would never have known had it not been taped. But this, so imagine, I think what really incensed me, Roland, was the woman who had gotten a huge settlement.
Black woman got a major settlement, $300,000. The white banker goes, she didn't earn this.
Which is...
and said she's going to waste it. You know, she's a welfare. I mean, you're a banker. You like all money.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should like all money. So here's the issue, and it's one of the reasons I started Wealthy You. Because if you don't have basic knowledge about the investment, how the investment markets work, then your assumption is that, you know, you reach a certain income level, you do well professionally, just like this NFL player, you have these assets, you would think that, and that's when I have a problem when black folks tell me about, you know, money is green. No, money is not colorblind, right? Because it's just that as you ascend financially, the racism just becomes more covert. As we saw. So they, you know, it's racism done politely. And in this case, he was not privy to what the gentleman in the office was saying. And, you know, my heart goes out to financial advisors who are in this environment and are trying to do the right thing, as this gentleman was trying to do. But unfortunately, because of the environment, they aren't able to really be of benefit to their community.
But
now,
it also impacts us multiple ways. First, the investment opportunities for the person who's trying to invest. Second, for the black banker, because they can't grow and thrive in the environment. So now you're limiting the opportunities not only for the person trying to invest money or the external person, but also the internal person. So we get hit both ways as well.
Absolutely. And so it's very difficult for a financial advisor then to thrive in this environment, because in many cases he can only take on an asset size. In some cases it's $250,000 or more, or $500,000 or more. And so what happens is the person who is trying to grow, I'm just starting out, I'm just, you know, a lot of my money is going to my 401k. I don't have a lot of discretionary income, but certainly as I grow, my assets are going to grow, and I should feel like I could get the benefit of someone who's going to advise me on how to deploy those assets properly. And my frustrations with financial services organizations, and I have them as clients, is that, you know, particularly for African Americans, we're risk averse. You know, we grew up, we're savers, we're not investors. If you didn't have someone in your family who could give you access, entree into this world of investments, you probably didn't have anyone do it. And so we have to grow. Even if in my own career, typically somebody started with $2,500 in a mutual fund, and a year later when they thought, okay, baby, I can trust you, I'm gonna show you where the real money is, right? Where there's $100,000, $200,000 in assets that they now trust you with. Far too many advisors don't even get that opportunity, because if someone comes with $2,500 or $10,000, they are not going to meet the minimums, so they're not going to become your client.
Cleo, it's very interesting. So this story here, J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon told employees in a memo sent out Friday after the New York Times story ran that, quote, he's disgusted by racism and hate in any form. And, quote, we must make sure that the culture we aspire to reaches every corner of our company. We have done some great work on diversity and inclusion, but it's not enough. We must be absolutely relentless on doing more. Now, Cleo, this is the same company that had to settle a racial discrimination lawsuit. Yeah. Now, I'm sorry, you're the CEO. And I know of other companies where CEOs said, let me be clear, you discriminate, your ass is gone.
Well,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Cleo, go ahead.
That was a CYA narrative that probably was written by his ass coverologist that works at the bank. And they always, because they wanted customers, despite their racism, try to cover themselves. But I have a concern in terms of what you're advising, which I agree with, but these kind of stories also feed into black resistance to trust in the bank and investing, because there's racism everywhere, and it's like they're not going to do right by us, as people assume. But another thing that concerns me, and I want to find out what you think we should do about this, Deborah, is that a lot of us feel like, a lot of us are surprised when racism, re-surprised when the same old racism jumps up. This ain't new. I mean,
no, it's.
So what do we do about? How can we stop being re-surprised by the same old stuff
Well,
so we can move?
I think that the issue really becomes this does happen every day. The fact is that this was simply recorded.
Right.
I know for a fact. I went into institutions with wealthy U members and have been taken aback by what? You're not going to help these people. You're not going to do anything. And so I think the real the remedy for that is for black folks because the gatekeepers are gone. You know what I mean? You don't have to go through a J.P. Morgan Chase.
Right.
And by the way, let's be frank. It's not just them. It's endemic and systemic of the industry itself, and how the whole monetary system of reward is set up in the industry. You are only going to, now it wasn't, well, back in the day, it was really prevalent because you had to have a certain amount of assets to even get into an investment. Now you've got all these different apps like Robinhood, Acorn. You can, but the problem is people don't have the fundamental knowledge about how to analyze and research stocks and mutual funds. But the truth is it's not that difficult. And so my remedy for it really is for folks to gain the knowledge that they need, so that you don't need someone to escort you anywhere. If you got the right knowledge, you can execute on it.
Plus, you also have black financial advisors. Rob, one second.
Exactly.
Hold on, Rob. I'm going to go to Samantha right here. This is what Jamie Dimon writes. We must make sure that the culture we aspire to reaches every corner of our company. We have done some great work on diversity and inclusion, but it's not enough. We must be absolutely relentless on doing more. I've instructed my management team to continually look into our policies, procedures, management practices, and culture to set and achieve the highest possible standards. There's always more we can do. Okay, so I went through this whole letter. This is what the letter did not say. From this point forward, if any employee discriminates against any one of our customers, you will be fired. I'm sorry, the CEO has to lay down the gauntlet, especially after you've already settled a race discrimination lawsuit by black employees at Chase.
So I think what it comes down to, again, is power and white supremacy. There's a power in keeping people down and discriminating against people. And once you set the tone and put your foot down, then that power gets dismantled and you lose your privilege, and nobody wants to lose their privilege. So I think that's why he hasn't outright came out and put some policies in place and distinctly said whoever crosses these policies or breaks these rules, they'll get fired, because he'll have a lot of backlash. There are middle managers. That's normally where discrimination takes place. Middle managers who hold a certain amount of power that keep those underneath them down. So if he comes forward and says, if you go against these policies, you'll get fired, then all those middle managers lose their power as well.
Hold on. I got to pull in Rob. Here.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm sorry. Leaders got to lead.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree that leaders have to lead.
This was a case, Rob, where the black employee recorded the conversations.
Yeah.
They tried. This ain't like, oh, he said, she said. No.
Right.
Got them on audio. Like, dude, you're busted.
Yeah, no, look, leaders should lead, but I am also not surprised. I think he should be held accountable. Right. They should have policy. I don't think it would matter if he did do the policy, because as Deborah made it very, very clearly stated, this goes on every single day. So, one, financial advisors that are at places like this that are black and brown, learn as much as you can, then leave and start your own so you can actually help. because you're not going to be able to do it in the construct of a J.P. Morgan. Name the other financial institutions. They're all pretty much the same, or they all rhyme. So we actually talked about this on my show. We have lots of financial advisors that are black. We need to also trust our own community. So Captain America's not coming to save us. Iron Man's not coming. That's all for the comic books, right? We're going to have to make sure that we empower ourselves. There's lots of knowledge out there. There's lots of good apps. There's some black-owned ones too. Actually, Solo Funds is a peer-to-peer lending network. Instead of going to payday lenders, you can actually have a peer-to-peer lending network, and it's black-owned too. And so there are things out there that we can do right now, and it's actually made already $19 million in loans. There are things that can be done. That we have power right now, that we don't have to wait on J.P. Morgan and Chase anymore. We just have to realize that we have that power, because we do have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for.
Eugene, literally a year ago, J.P. Morgan Chase settled a lawsuit, $24 million, with 6 black financial advisors that said the bank practiced uniform and national in scope discrimination against African-American financial advisors, such as assigning them to poor bank branches, understaffing them, and failing to include them in a program for richer clients. Literally.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is this, it's interesting because Jamie's supposed to be one of the better Wall Street bank CEOs and whatnot.
Really?
Yeah. We're looking at the gamut of them. And so he has to take a stronger stand on this. I think the shareholders of J.P. Morgan Chase have to take a stronger stand on this. I think that's where the real uprising probably has to come. Because it's not, the bank's money or Jamie's money being paid out. It's their money's being paid out. And so, this is, once one of the majors take a stronger stance, then the others will follow. And then it'll ripple through the Fed system, hopefully. But I did have a question for Deborah.
Go ahead.
Going back to your initial story, I know a lot of the banks that have the private banking typically falls on the investment banking side. Are there any black banks that do well with private banking or investment banking? I mean, I know a lot of them are smaller community banks and whatnot, but $800,000 in assets would do amazing to a bank's assets and holding. That's smaller size bank.
Well, I mean, typically, so who are the major players in investments? That would be your Brown Capital Management out of Baltimore.
Yep.
That would be John Rogers, Ariel Investments. One of the things I did want to give a shout out to is the QADE, which is the African American Financial Advisors Association. I want to really encourage folks who are listening to this program, if you are looking for someone, looking for assistance, and you do want to find someone who you feel like you can trust and will have your best interest at heart, I really want to encourage folks to go to QADE's website. Just Google it, African American Financial Advisors, and they have a portal where, depending upon where you live, you can find those financial advisors. And here's the only point I want to make is that the industry itself is set up based on servicing people with a certain amount of assets. That is what it is. It's a very difficult environment for black advisors to exceed in, because, I mean, if you look at some of the stats, do you know that 20 years ago, the number of African-American families with $1 million or more of net worth, 20 years later, even though the number of white folks' families with net worth of $1 million or more has doubled, ours has stayed flat, if not even a little less than it was 20 years ago. And the reason, if you delve into that, what you see is so many of our assets are in fixed income investments. You look at what the market has done over the past 10 years, and so what happens is, because we're so risk adverse and we're not in those investment vehicles, our money's not growing. Okay, and then you see that people are reaching out, they do want their money to grow, and yet when they go and they ask for help, they're not being helped. So at the end of the day, what I would say is that we've got to do business with people who we feel are going to have our best interests at heart. And it is to Robert's point, it is up to us, right? Nobody's going to save us, right? And so we have to save ourselves. And saving ourselves means increasing our financial acumen, learning how the markets work. There's nothing, no longer anything to stop anyone from being able to invest on their own, whether you're self-employed or with an employer or you want to invest for your child. You have to be proactive and begin to make your money grow, because if not, what we're going to have is just a widening wealth gap, particularly for people of color.
Yeah, but the problem, Cleo, that you're dealing with is, I mean, hell, even when you got money, you're still dealing with people like this here, and so you know, it's finding the folks who are going to treat you with a level of respect. And to Eugene's point, you need corporate leaders to frankly lay down the law and say, I'm sorry, this will not be tolerated, and heads got to roll. Final comment before I go to the next story.
Well, not only should we find folks that are more affirming of us, but we should reject and boycott folks who don't. I have money in this institution, and I'm taking it out. And I think we need to boycott and have self-respect, because self-respect has a domino effect, I think, towards prosperity as well. And if we look at people who do us wrong and continue to work with them because we're questioning our worth, which is a problem in our community.
I totally agree with you.
It's going to lead us to poverty, not only cultural poverty, but financial poverty and poverty on a holistic scale. And we need to step up against white supremacy, even when it's at a bank. All right.
Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Going to a break. We'll just talk about investment in Africa up next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Thursday, I leave for Ghana, folks, for a 10-day trip. And that country, they were thinking anywhere about 100,000 folks were going to be traveling there with this year of return. In fact, they've actually processed more than 1 million visas to Ghana in the year of return. Akon recently talked about African Americans should be investing in Ghana and other African nations. According to a report by the UN Conference on Trade and Development, Africa is the most profitable region in the world. And there are ways that Americans, especially black folks, can tap into that. Joining me now is Franklin Miles. He's founder and director of AWE African Development. Franklin, glad to have you here. What do you make of what Akon said, the opportunities for African Americans to invest in Africa?
He's absolutely right. I mean, my organization, AWE African Development, specializes in identifying entrepreneurs and opportunities in Africa and connecting them with American, primarily European investors. I think Akon's absolutely right in emphasizing the need for African Americans to get involved in the market. At AWE, we help people sort of identify entrepreneurs, companies that need an investment in Africa, in industries such as telecom, transport, and IT. And so I think it behooves Americans and the American government actually to facilitate those sort of investments in Africa for business reasons as well as strategic reasons.
But is America really doing that?
No, it's not. Or at least it's far lagging behind Europe and mainly China. And it's really sad. I mean, China leads with state enterprises and with large governmental-owned companies. But, you know, the advantage of America is we're a country of entrepreneurs. We celebrate free enterprise. And to that extent, you know, Africa is known to have one of the largest set of entrepreneurs in the world. Places like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya have tons of entrepreneurs who are starting companies. And so Americans are really missing out on that sort of cultural connect with entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs, investing in private sector. And so it really is sad that America is sort of falling behind these other major players in the world when it comes to Africa.
One of the things that I saw this video the other day with my man, John Hope Bryant, and he was talking about the opportunities that are there. I thought it was quite interesting that he was sharing with people because he had just gotten back from South Africa. And so go to my iPad. I want to play this here. Here we go to my iPad.
Or what can you do for Africa terms? And I want you to do what you can for Africa, but I just got back from South Africa with my family, and I've got a message for you. Africa can do something for you. I'm about to give you 2 ways for you to benefit financially from Africa. That's right, either income, or wealth. Here you go. Number 1, if you're working class, you've worked your whole life, okay? You've got $25,000 saved up. Check your retirement plan or whatever program you use. If you have $50,000 saved up, you're really in good shape. All right, you got 25 grand saved up, 50 grand ideally. All right, from your retirement plan for your, whatever. You've been working someplace. You got an insurance policy because somebody passed, unfortunately, in your family. But you got 50 grand, and you have a marketable skill. I want you to think about going to South Africa, okay? Because the rand is 12, 13, 14 rand to the dollar. Now, that's real money. So here's what you do. You go there, and you can buy a $250,000, $300,000 house, and I mean a nice one, okay, for $25,000 cash. I mean a beautiful house. In fact, if you use a little leverage, a loan, you can buy, don't overdo it, but you can take a 25 grand cash, and maybe because you're a foreigner, they're going to give you a 50% loan-to-value loan, but whatever it is, you can get like a $500,000 beautiful house in South Africa and help your brothers and sisters in South Africa and help the economy there for, little to nothing, you owe very little debt on it. Number 2, you're going to get a job there as let's say an English instructor or you're teaching something because let's say you're a teacher in Detroit. You're going to go there because teachers are in demand, right? They're going to pay you top dollar. And even though it's less than here, it's, again, 12, 13, 14 rand to the U.S. dollar. So if you've got another 25 grand saved up, so you have 25 grand, all right, that you put down payment, 25 grand saved up, or you put $25,000 in investments there, start a little business or something, and you're working and your cost of living is lower, okay? Simple math is you're going to do extremely well. Here's how you actually build wealth. Do well.
Frankly, what about that? Because what he's saying is, stop just thinking you have to be here. Think about literally living in the motherland.
So essentially, in South Africa is where I discovered opportunities too. I mean, I lived in South Africa for 5 years, and it's a beautiful country. And when you go there, you actually see the opportunities. And there are lots of African Americans who live in South Africa too, doing the exact same thing. But number 1 is he nails on the point that Africa is not just a place you vacation. It's an investment destination, and that's sort of the best way of viewing Africa these days. It's a country, it's a continent that's viewed as a place, that has lots of strive, gets aid. But the best thing you could do for Africa is actually invest. Now, if you really want to do things, you can move there too, because South Africa is a wonderful place to live. Just financially, but also just in terms of what it has to offer. But the best thing you can do is see Africa as an investment destination. That'll do more than anything else to start growth there.
Eugene?
Are there any crowd funds or that target particularly African investments? Or let's just put it this, what would be as a 29-year-old, right? What would be the best way to get involved right now?
So I think it's what you're saying.
I want a port.
So like,
I want a port like China.
You wanted to?
I want a port.
Okay.
I want to get into shipping.
Oh, well, well, $500 million would do you some good. There. But like you said,
Roland about it. He got it.
Right. So the critical thing about Africa is that, yeah, to invest in a fund is to find a fund that actually does work there. And there are very few that actually do. And that's one of the things that Alway is trying to do is sort of recruit investors, create funds that can actually facilitate that sort of investment. Because it is international capital. Yeah. But you can also move to Africa and have your money sort of, put into a bank account there and invest in small businesses as well. So it might not be a port, but, the thing about Africa is small entrepreneurship, too. So, a port can go a long ways, but also, like investing in a business in, say, Nairobi or in Johannesburg or in Accra would go a long ways, too.
Rob?
Yeah. So this is a great conversation. I think for our community, we have to change our mindset. Just like Deborah said earlier, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable to really be able to see wealth generated. So I think what holds a lot of people back is that well, how do I just take this step to go to Africa and make investments in a country I don't know about? So that would be my question back to our guest a little bit. What steps would you say if someone says, okay, I'm interested? What's the first way to go about investing, and then how do you know the quality of the entity that you're working with? Like, what should you measure when you're evaluating the investments that you're making in Africa?
So one of the things we work with at Alway is, first of all, you talk to me. That's the best way of doing it. But what do we do? Plug in there. So what we do at Alway is we identify sort of we screen entrepreneurs for the quality of their experience, of their the biography, basically to see if are you really good to work with. And I work with, our organization's entirely African-American and African-owned. And in fact, many of my business partners are from Africa, and I've known them for several years, so it's easy for me to trust that. And that's one of the difficult barriers in investing in Africa. So you have to have a local partner in terms of investment. You can't just walk into the market and trust anybody. I mean, people have lost money like that all over the world, not just in Africa, and sort of pursuing that strategy. So I would encourage you, for whatever means you can, is to find a local partner that you can work with. If you don't know the person very well, do some research, ask very detailed questions. But it's about finding someone from that market who knows it very well. Now, this is Washington, D.C. area, so there's a large sort of African community here in G County. And so I think here it's actually quite easy to find people who are connected to the markets.
Is there any like Better Business Bureau or something like that? I mean, for Africa, is something like an overall, just so if someone knows, like, if you go to this entity, they have all. I mean, I know it's your organization, but let's say there's a collection. Yeah. Is there a collection that says, okay, these are the organizations you can trust because they have they've gone through this process? That's kind of my question. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Department of Commerce, they have an African bureau actually, where you can go and have resources specifically dedicated to Africa. And even in South Africa, if you go there, they even have resources there for people who want to do business in Africa. So there are government-provided resources as well.
Cleo, real quick.
Well, first of all, Mr. Miles, it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to further conversation. But I'm sitting here in a slight state of shock because I'm thinking of the cliche, if you live long enough, you'll see things happen that you never saw before. And I've been going back and forth from Africa, particularly West Africa and South Africa, forever. And it's been compared to the rest of the population of black people in the country kind of isolating because they don't know what I'm talking about. They have no idea what's there. And they have a Tarzan, they saw Tarzan and they think they know, or the Lion King, and they think they know, and they're not really proud compared to the Eiffel Tower in terms of their mind in this society. And I know how beautiful Africa is. I know what the opportunities are, and I'm going to learn more from you, I hope. But I'm just in a state of shock at the shift, and all of the year of return, and all of this stuff that's happening. It's just exciting. And I know that people are jumping on it, and there's more people need to know about the fact that Africa is a beautiful place. It's gorgeous. There's a lot of healthiness there in terms of the nutrition, the ecosystem, and it's not the negativity that all of us assume, because some of us are trained to disassociate. I'm sure you know that from Africa. And I really embrace what you're doing because I think it's going to attract people to transform that negative perspective into a positive perspective and invest in it.
Real quick. Comment?
Yes. The first thing, when you mentioned moving to the continent of Africa, the first thing I thought about was safety. As a black woman and as a millennial, we have started going back to the continent, and it's become a little bit normalized, but moving there seems kind of...
You said moving there.
It kind of intimidates me because I've seen a lot of civil unrest, heard about the corruption in the government, and I just wanted to know if...
Are we talking about the United States right now?
Okay, that's what I was thinking the same thing.
Because the reality is, a number of people have actually moved there. Young folks as well. There was a brother who was a professor in Chicago who got sick and tired of the violence there. Took $30,000+. He's been living there more than a decade. There are a number of expatriates. Ghana has a huge community of African Americans who've been there going back 30, 40 years. And so the more folks hear about these opportunities, it's causing them to say, wait a minute, hold up. There are places you go, like I was talking to Michelle McKinney-Hammond. She says, Roland, I'm going to take you to some places in Ghana that you think that you were sitting here in Beverly Hills or Bel Air.
It's very true. Yeah,
and Sister, Ghana doesn't have a police brutality problem. They don't have no Tamir Rice equivalents or Michael Brown equivalents. It's a quite beautiful and peaceful place, Ghana.
Because you see black people all the time. Franklin, final comment, real quick.
Well, I was going to say, just to get back to you, it's like every market is different. So Ghana actually is perception-wise safer than South Africa, even though South Africa is a more developed market.
Right.
But, you know, I lived all over the world, and I've never had a problem living in South Africa. And no, you don't have to move there, but spend some time there. Spend some time anywhere you invest in.
Yeah.
So spend 6 months there, and you'll notice within 6 months that the opportunities are there. So I encourage African Americans to really get involved meaningfully in Africa.
All right, how do folks reach out to you?
Oh,
how do they reach you?
So how do you reach you? AweAfricaDev.com.
Say it again.
AweAfricaDev.com.
All right.
AweAfricaDev.com.
All right, well, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
All right, folks. In North Carolina, a school resource officer at Vance County Middle School in Vance County, North Carolina, has been placed on leave after this video blew up on social media. Folks, you see this, I mean, this body slam this child twice. The officer's name has not been released, and of course, the school has apologized. Yeah, but really, what in the hell can be said, Rob, about how this child's being treated?
Well, it's awful. Obviously, this officer should obviously be fired, and I think also be prosecuted. Beyond that, though, we have, and we've talked about this on this show, we have set a narrative, and we have made it okay to dehumanize our kids. We've created a prison to pipeline process that really started in the 80s and 90s, and now we're seeing the devastating effects of that. So we need to really put a halt on actually over policing our kids. I mean, you see this process of starting to just criminalize kids when they're 11, 10, 5 years old, and you're already being labeled as a criminal. I mean, kudos to I think it was California that recently just passed that actually said that they're going to stop suspending elementary school students. I can speak personally to a story that actually happened to me when I was in high school. A student hit me, and I pushed him just off of me, and they suspended both of us for 10 days. That actually set me back, and I got zeros for like one half of the semester, and then the other half too. So because they had that zero tolerance, kind of like that 3 strikes you're out policy, right. They applied the same thing to black and brown kids in schools. And you're seeing this play out. And so he dehumanizes our kids. He's one example, but we know there's a system, there's a construct that continues to do this, and we need to do everything we can to push back against it.
Samantha, another reason why these cops should not be in schools.
That's a loaded question. Immediately when I heard about this story.
No, it's not a loaded question. The reality is these are schools. How officers treat people on the streets is different than what happens in schools. To see that officer body slam that child, to see the cop who came into the school in South Carolina and physically drag the black girl's statue out of her desk and turn it over. They are applying standards that take place on the streets to now what's happening in schools. That is nonsensical.
Yes, let me clarify. The simple answer is no. When I heard about this story, I immediately thought about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Dr. Joy DeGroot, she has research on that, and she did a quick video through one of the main social media websites, I can't remember which one, and that explains how the mentality inflicted on the black community from Jim Crow era and slavery has been perpetuated up till now. And I think that's what we're seeing here, what Rob said about dehumanizing our children and not even viewing black children as children. That's what perpetuates this type of behavior. And then you align it with how police officers treat black people in general.
Cleo, we have no audio of this, but again, to see that level of viciousness, this is a huge officer and this small child.
The officer's black, right?
Appears to be.
Yes.
He appears to be black. I'm going to just reiterate something I've said many times on the show, is that we have to, it's easier, particularly these days when people saying white supremacy like it's candy all over the place, to look at that phenomenon, which is monstrous and horrible. But we need to look at the consequences of living in the poison contamination of white supremacy norms for centuries that we've internalized. The white dehumanization of black people and mistaken it for culture or N-word shit. You heard that N-word calling stuff that you've heard that word before, haven't you? N-word shit? Okay, you look like you're all shocked.
No.
But this is unfiltered. But anyway, and I did say N-word. But anyway, my point is that we need to take a look that we should purge the unresolved and rarely articulated problem of internalized white supremacy. because a lot of us don't like each other, and it's not necessarily a conscious plan or a conscious thing that we realize. It's unconscious, and it's part of internalizing a norm in this culture. I think it has to do with why we don't boycott when we've been disrespected, and why some people become cops and do this kind of stuff. It's because even to become a police, you don't have to love yourself as a black person to become a police.
Eugene.
This cop needs to be arrested, charged, tried, and convicted. That's child abuse. That's assault. There's a lot that went on right there. I agree with your first statement that the cops should not be inside the actual schools. Maybe outside the schools, there is a public safety threat that largely surrounds a lot of schools, but not physically inside the schools. But when you have officers like this, you gotta convict them and put them in Gen Pop. None of the solitary confinement, not like that, because they need to feel what they inflict. They need to feel what they inflict.
Roland, is there a video of a white child being thrown around like this? That's what I'm saying. We need to.
White people, you might mess around and come across one of them.
No, well, crazy anti-black black people is my concern. Crazy anti-black people.
The answer is
But the thing is this, right? But you got to make sure police officers are convicted and tried and convicted. You got to get. You can't just walk away with just being suspended or fired.
But we got to look. But we got to look at patterns. We got to look at patterns too.
The DA has to come in and arrest and convict.
But you also have to remove these officers from school.
I agree 100% with you.
Okay, that's what you have to do. You have to have people who are trained to deal with children, dealing with children, not folks like this. All right, folks, there's one story here. Orlando Jones has been fired from his role in the Starz original series American Gods. The showrunner said his character, Mr. Nancy, the African trickster deity Anansi, sent the wrong message for Black America with his get shit done attitude. That's what Orlando said. Do y'all have the video that Orlando... So play Orlando's video that he posted on social media explaining him being fired back in September. Okay, we don't have that. That's the video we should have. Okay, hold on. Let me find it. Okay, go to my iPad, please. Here it is.
2018, I was fired from American Gods. There will be no more Mr. Nancy. Don't let these motherfuckers tell you they love Mr. Nancy. They don't. I'm not going to name names, but the new season 3 showrunner is Connecticut-born and Yale-educated, so he's very smart. And he thinks that Mr. Nancy's angry, get shit done is the wrong message for Black America. That's right, this white man sits in that decision-making chair, and I'm sure he has many Black BFFs who are his advisors and made it clear to him that if they did not get rid of that angry god, Mr. Nancy, he'd start a Denmark VC uprising in this country. I mean, what else could it be? To the wonderful Neil Gaiman, thank you for allowing me to play this role, for writing this wonderful book, for opening the door for me to become a writer-producer on season 2 of American Gods. Thank you, sir. To the magnificent Brian Fuller and the incredible Michael Green, thank you for creating this series and for allowing me also to become Mr. Nancy. I hope the fans enjoyed it because really this is about you. I hope you loved it as much as I loved doing it, and we see each other again real.
That was a video that he dropped on social media over the weekend. The producers say his character was actually moving in a different direction. They were following the storyline of the book, and it wasn't because he was black. But for those, because first of all, I don't watch the show.
I can speak on it as a day one fan of American Gods.
I don't watch the show, but I'm going to play this clip, which certainly resonates with anybody who watches the show, even those of us who don't watch the show.
Third, fourth episode in.
I am not a god, in the sense that I can tolerate exploitation, oppression, and repression. My worshippers know freedom ain't free. They know the most potent weapon of control for the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. They know slavery is not a condition. Slavery is a cult. Human trafficking is a cult. Slavery got to rebrand like motherfucking the alt-right. And snatched. Another one gone. Every 30 seconds, another chocolate brown, caramel yellow, high yellow, red bone refugee girl with melanin in her skin gets snatched. Every 30 seconds. And to make matters worse, these dazzling new plantation owners built a pipeline to take our children from school to prison quicker than a cut can bleed. And the lucky ones go from school to the NFL, where they don't even let them niggas take a knee. They've been programmed from birth with shitty food options, contaminated drinking water, gun violence, police brutality, and trauma after trauma after trauma. PTSD, no therapy. Missing, no Amber Alert. Alone. Vulnerable. Snatched. Another one gone.
I hear you, brother. And I hear them. I hear each voice, and I write each name.
We have lived long enough to know these troubles are timeless. Suffering is not secret.
And moral law is final. Sooner or later, they all lay before me.
So that is an amazing example of what we got week in, week out from Mr. Nancy. You know, he played a role in the broader scheme of old gods versus new gods and whatnot. And I actually think probably the more powerful clip is his anger gets shit done. One slave ship on making his way over. But if what he's saying is true, and I believe him, because I don't think he has any reason to lie to us, I hope the show, dies. Fuck it. I was a fan. I'm probably gonna watch again because he played a critical role. He played a very, very critical role in defining the show from season 1, from episode 1.
Final comment.
I hadn't never. No, go on, sister. But I want to say something too, dadgummit.
After watching the clip, the first thing I thought about was, wow, he's shedding light on the intricacies of institutional racism. Education is the best way to affect change, and those empowered don't want those not empowered to be educated so that they can rise up and do something to change the dynamics of how things are. And I think I agree with what Orlando said. And like Eugene just said, I hope the show dies as well.
I had never seen this show or heard of it, but I've been predicting who in the landscape of media who's black who are going to lose their gigs for years, and I've been quite accurate at predicting when I saw certain things that they were going to be removed, and I would have predicted that if I saw this, but I didn't know it existed. The first thing that BET did when Viacom took over was make sure there were no news shows, no informational shows that would take black people out of the white supremacy trauma trends.
Actually, those shows were canceled.
Wait.
No, go ahead, finish your point. They're going to Rob, and I got to close it out.
But there was, Viacom was owning stuff before the actual complete transfer.
No. Those new shows were canceled by Bob Johnson long before Viacom bought BT. Okay, Bob Johnson said the E in BT stands for entertainment.
Okay, well, we'll argue about that later.
No, I ain't got to argue about it. I know it. Sheila Johnson, his wife, was the co-founder, did not even realize it was being canceled. When he canceled Tabitha's show, canceled Teen Summit, he canceled Lead Story. He canceled those shows years before Viacom bought it.
I remember in particular what happened to Tavis, and, I don't want to make us go longer.
I'm saying, Bob Johnson canceled those shows. Okay. White folks didn't. Bob did.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay.
Finish your point. Finish your point. I'm going to Rob, and I got to go. I got to discuss education next.
The bottom line is that when black people like Arsenio Hall and others, and Roland Martin to some extent as well, say the truth, they want them out of the way, off the landscape, and not waking black people up. And this character was doing some things that would wake black people up.
Right, but remember, those words are also being written.
No, he wrote that himself.
No. But what I'm saying is, it was written and included in the show, and so we'll see what happens in terms of whether the show continues. Rob, I got to go to you real quick. Go ahead.
Yep, I'll be very quick. Look, black people start trends. We have to recognize our own value. We don't have to go through mediums. This is why you started your show. It's why I have my show. We can control our own narratives, and we should do so. And then we should value the people that are actually putting our voices out there. People like Tyler Perry, people like you.
All right, folks, we certainly appreciate it. I got to go. We got to talk education next. It was a big forum that took place over the weekend, aired on MSNBC, and I got our own panel coming up to break down that conversation. That's next, the Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke.
This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet or the black carpet, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble. Yes, I am. Because Roland Martin's the one, he will do it backwards, he will do it on the side. He messes everybody up when he gets into the wobble, because he doesn't know how to do it, so he does it backwards. And it just messes me up every single time. So, I'm working on it. I got it. You got Roland Martin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mac Wiles, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up? This is Aldous Hodge, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, everybody, it's your girl Sherry Shepherd, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey, Roland.
Tim Story, director of Shaft. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. What up, y'all? This is Method Man, Mighty Wu-Tang Clan. You watching Uncle Roland Martin, and the show is Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune in. Laura Ingram, you suck.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke.
This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet or the black carpet, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.